Glad to be back with you. Give me a few seconds as I finish these last few steps, and we can get the party going. Do do do. I hope you've been having a fantastic week, and it's been productive, relaxing. It's been whatever you needed for it to be since the last time we were together. I am definitely excited to be with you all as we continue our discussions on the 12 universal laws. I think we're doing the law of attraction, which a lot of people talk about, but don't always put it in the context of where does it come from. So I look forward to being able to discuss that with us tonight. Let me see. Where we at? Doo-doo-doo. All right, here we go. Thanks for being a part of the family again. I appreciate you. Doo-doo-doo. So, who are we? Who am I? I am Soul Swami, and what we do here is discuss healing in all forms and fashions to try to help us become our authentic self. Right? We do this to try to create a space where we can be connected with like energies and people who are on the same path as us to trying to become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. We do this because authenticity and relieving ourselves from some of our past experiences and reshaping our relationship allows us to get some sense of freedom, whatever that means to us, being able to define what that means and being able to live a path that leads to that. I appreciate you. I don't know, I said sound off, but I appreciate you, Liberty. As always, you can generally catch us every Tuesday and Thursday. Thursday is a spinoff of the Tuesday night show. Thursday is book club. But you can catch us every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch. Outside of that, we try to do TikTok occasionally, but I really am thinking that maybe outside of me using Streamlabs, but I come to find out one of my friends told me that healing might be one of those against community standard words, and it's not really against community standard words, but it is. So we have problems with that every time. So as a matter of fact, I take it as a sign that maybe that's just not the space for us. So again, you can catch us every Tuesday and Thursday on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. Right. Generally, at the beginning of every show, we do a little energy work, and this week we are on our third eye, which resides right there in our forehead and is otherwise known as our intuition. Our third eye, one, controls our intuition, our vision, like not our literal vision and sight, but our vision to be able to make a path for our lives or direction for our lives. It is our perception, how we see things, how we review things, how we internalize different things. So, and it is for astral projection and astral travel, which is simply the vehicle for astral travel is remembering or visualization, right? So we either go back in the past through memories, or we travel into the future with visualizations, or even if we go left and right, we do that with visualizations. The element for that is light. So if you are into light therapy, you want to use indigo. Indigo or black light is perfect for indigo, and it is perfect for your third eye. If you are into essential oils, you want to think rosemary, clary sage, patchouli, cedarwood are all good for your third eye. And if you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think labradorite, purple fluorite, sodalite, and amethyst is always good. Like I always show this one, even though it's a red amethyst, it's still an amethyst, and it helps your third eye as well as other things. Your crown. Amethyst is good for a lot of different things. It's very good energetic stone. So if you are into that. Next thing we do is we do a little sound therapy. So all you have to do is be able to relax and listen to the bowl. We're gonna do the bowl a little bit tonight. And then after that we'll move into our breath work. And I think I want to do 4, 7, 8, which is you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for a 7 count, you exhale for an 8 count. But during this time, make sure you just focus on clearing your energy of some of the worries of the day and finding a sense of calmness and relaxation so you can be present for the discussion and be able to receive whatever messages you need to be able to receive. We definitely have a lot to discuss today, so I look forward. As a matter of fact, I think today might be a 2-part episode. Man, communication must be on fire for everybody, so I hope you all are in a space where you can say the things you feel, and as a matter of fact, being able to recognize the things that you feel and being able to communicate them. All right, next we will do our breathing exercise. Again, we're going to do 4, 7, 8. And all you have to do is really just focus in on your breathing, making sure that you're able to get enough air, releasing whatever you need to release, and attracting whatever you need to attract, inhaling whatever energy you need to inhale, and exhaling whatever you need to release. So again, you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for a 7 count, and you exhale or breathe out for an 8 count. And I will keep the count for you. So all you have to do is just listen to the sound, of my voice. On the count of 3, we will start our breathing exercise. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, as you are rested and relaxing, I want you to inhale and repeat these affirmations after me. I trust my intuition. My imagination is powerful. I think clearly. My third eye sees all. I trust my intuition. My imagination is powerful. I think clearly. My third eye sees all. All right. So now we can get this party started. All right, family. So for our general discussions, I know I kind of want to talk about disappointment again, but not specifically about disappointment because we talked about it last week and we are in a space of reshaping our relationship with disappointment. And something I do want to talk about is during the men's group, they had us do something I thought was a very good activity. And it was identifying where in our body do we feel these emotions, whether they wind up residing, what part of our body do we feel the effect of them. Now, we do understand that emotions affect our body as a whole, but some of our actions reflect where we feel these more intensely. And for me, it was interesting. But I said I feel disappointment in my shoulders. And I recognize that because generally when I'm disappointed, the first thing that I notice is my shoulders droop. Like, oh, man, still like a kid. So I say that to you so you can take some time and think about where some of these words that we are reshaping our relationship with reside in your body. Where do you feel the most? So think about that. Where do you feel disappointment in your body the most? Now, the thing that I do want to discuss about disappointment is how fast the universe works. So it's not specifically about disappointment, but it's about the opportunity to be able to reshape our relationship and navigate these skills with different tools, right? Navigate these experiences with different tools, right? So we talked about disappointment. And it was only a matter of days, a few days later, I had the opportunity to deal with disappointment, right? Wound up making a plan, and the plan just didn't go the way I wanted it to. As a matter of fact, honestly, I wound up getting stood up, trying to hang out with a friend. Wound up getting stood up, and I use that loosely, but it really is more about not communicated very well. And just to get to the point where our interaction just didn't happen for various reasons, right? So normally in that space, I'd wind up being disappointed, right? And that disappointment, I'd wind up ruminating, thinking about that disappointment, thinking about all the things I should have said, could have said, would have said, just wind up being stuck in this space of feeling, that cycle of feeling disappointment too deeply. But one of the things that was interesting after interacting or after being able to identify how I navigate disappointment, how I treated disappointment, I was able to use these new tools. The tool of understanding really helped me navigate disappointment in a way that I had never been able to navigate it before, right? I was able to communicate what I needed. I need clear communication so I can adjust my plans, and I was able to feel better about being able to communicate my feelings and not being so emotionally tied to an outcome that I couldn't necessarily control, right? And all of that is to say, be careful, not necessarily be careful, but understand when you ask for something or when you ask to develop something, that opportunity, especially if you have the self-awareness to pay attention to what is going on around you, that opportunity to exercise those new skills can be almost immediate, right? We always think that, like, if I ask for patience or if I ask for love or if I ask for anything, it's going to take time before we get the opportunity to be able to navigate these things. But it doesn't quite work like that, right? It works a little quicker than we anticipate, right? So next thing I want to do is I wound up getting an idea for a new segment on the show. A friend reached out to me and sent me this message and specifically told me, they was like, hey, you talk about it on your show. And I never really thought about that, right? You know what I mean? I asked for vulnerability, especially if people want to do an energy reading. Again, if you would like to join the live and do an energy reading, all you have to do is just click the link in the description, and it'll bring you on to the show. Well, it won't immediately bring you onto the show, but it'll bring you onto my platform where I can let you onto the show or not let you onto the show, whatever that winds up happening. But they wound up sending me this message, right? And in the message, they wanted my opinion or my thoughts, so I want to share that with y'all in our new segment called, it's funny because I worked on this. I'm so excited about it too. Ask Soul Swami. Woo, 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 woo. See, I'm so excited about that. I'm such a kid. The things that I tell you, one thing that has been beautiful about this path is me beginning to acknowledge all the ways and all the different things that we need to celebrate. You like that, Liberty? Hold on, let me show you again. And I ain't gonna lie, you are one of the people, as a matter of fact, not necessarily just one of the people, but something you said to me made me recognize that I really do need to step my game up a little bit. Is when I created the new starting now and ending soon. And you said the visuals look good. And I was like, visuals do really make a difference. So that is going to be a new segment of the show where we wind up discussing inbox questions if there's something, and anonymously, because I don't really tell the people. I get their opinions or I get their permission, but I don't really say who it is or what it's about. We just wind up talking about real life situations and how we wind up navigating that. So you have a question or you have something that you would like my opinion on. Okay. Okay. Oh, so I'm listen. I was wondering why it showed up with what is this? Move out the way. Okay. Use my real name. What? Hey, listen. My real name is Soul Swami. Nah, if you want to get my real name, you can go on Amazon and purchase you a copy of The 7 Spaces of Healing by Anthony Howell, otherwise known as Soul Swami. I can tell you that this has been a beautiful journey with that book. It's been a slow process, but I've actually enjoyed the process. Side note of getting it out there, making myself vulnerable, exposing myself for opinions and critiques and all these things. But what has been more surprising is the amount of people that have actually supported this. I get pictures every week of someone telling me that they purchased the book, right? And then at some point, for the ones who definitely read it, they wind up sending me their thoughts and opinions. The last one I got is the person was like, yo, that was very good way to explain 7 spaces. And during the course of this year, we in January, so everybody doing their New Year's resolutions, that they plan on being intentional with creating those spaces for themselves, right? Okay, hold on. Boop, 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 doop, boop. All right. So back to the question at yes, promo. I know that's right. Hello. So this message said, I've had many people, even a police chief and a judge, tell me that if they went through the stuff that I've gone through with my son and my family, they would write them all off. And at this point, after going through the courts, charged and convicted, I feel like I'm heading in that direction. People do what you allow them to do or what the system decides how your life should go. They were tight-lipped and or didn't remember after a year. I've lost so much and still losing a lot, all while not having a support system that I once had. But I am grateful for the family and friends that have been there since the beginning, and they've never switched up. My therapist said I need a new family because he for damn sure wouldn't deal with that bullshit, right? So this is an interesting life event. Like I could tell during this message, there's several different things that they're going through, and it is definitely creating some sort of emotions inside of them, right? Now, the one thing that winds up standing out to me very clear, and I caution people about this, is it seems as though a lot of the people that they run across have the answers, the solutions to what they should do in their life. And this seems like the common thread is everyone is saying, cut them off, cut the family off, cut them family off, cut the family off, cut the family off. I'm always careful about when people have the solutions for my life. And I will tell you to be the same. Be careful about people when they have the solutions for your life, because their solutions may not work for your life at all. And people don't always have the resilience. They don't have the understanding. They don't have the connection to God. They don't have the power that you may have to be able to navigate these experiences, right? And that makes me think about the time when I first went to Milwaukee. When I first went to Milwaukee, literally less than 24 hours in that place, I wound up getting detained. We'll say detained by the police, right? But whenever I would tell people that story, they would always say, if that happened to me, I probably would have came home. I probably would have came home. And I heard that so many times, but it was a confusing statement to me, because to me, it was like, why would I come home? Because things got a little difficult or didn't go the way I expected. Everything else is going exactly how I needed to go, right? And because that one roadblock comes up, it was there to knock me off my path. And why would I give up on myself or my dreams so easily? So when I spoke to this person, I told them one of the reasons that you can't take that advice that everybody keeps telling you, just cut them off, cut them off, cut them off, because it doesn't sit right with your spirit, right? So you have to be able to take time and acknowledge that even though they have good intentions, remember the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Even though they have good intentions, you have to be in a space to be able to trust yourself enough to recognize when those good intentions do not work for the path or the life that you are trying to live for yourself, right? Hold on, let me cut that off, because I don't want to hear my phone all night. So I say that and give yourself that take your power back and trust in yourself that you do have the skills and the tools to be able to figure out what works best for you. Cutting them off does not seem like an option for you, because that is so simple. You don't need someone else to tell you, hey, cut them off, cut them off, cut them off, cut them off, right? That is the easy way out, right? And sometimes that cut them off reinforces behaviors that we no longer want to support. That avoidant behavior, cutting them off becomes easy when you want to avoid what you have to deal with. But when it comes to your family and loved ones and people that you care about, avoidant behaviors don't always create a healthy, safe environment for you, because all you wind up doing is cutting them off and then ruminating, or wind up being stuck in the cycle of wondering if you did the right thing, wondering if this was the right path, or you wind up being stuck in the space of resentment, right? So one of the things that I wind up telling them to do is think about what you're really looking for. So if you're going through this situation where you're having trials and tribulations with your family and loved ones, and it seems like the people that you trust and share your opinions with are giving you this simple solution, pause and acknowledge again that you have the skills to navigate that, and deciding what does that really look like. If you know that cutting them off is going to support avoidant behaviors that you're trying to change, then what does navigating this look like, right? So I asked them, what do you want? And that's the first thing that people should do, right? So in this process, what we want to do is be able to ask questions that will help us come up with the solutions that we need. So I asked, what do you want? And they could identify that one of the things that they want is peace, right? So if you're in this situation and you're looking for peace, you start with the understanding that the only person you can control is yourself, right? And now once you identify peace, you identify what you can control, then you decide, what does peace look like? We talk about peace on this show all the time, right? And we have this understanding that peace does not mean the absence of conflict, because even in peaceful times, there will be conflict. And if you think that peace means no conflict, you will wind up supporting avoidant behaviors, because conflict does not reside in your idea of peace, right? Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is having the tools to navigate conflict in a healthy way, knowing that you did your best, knowing that you offered your best, knowing that you actually cared and you did what you could. That creates a sense of peace, right? So you have to pause and think about, what does peace look like in this situation? What can I do to create peace in this situation? And sometimes it means prioritize yourself. Find some things that support who you want to be. Find some things that create a space for you to release the stress and the worries. That's one of the reasons why we get here together for at least 1 hour every Tuesday and every Thursday. We have a space that we can release. We can discuss some of the things that we're dealing with. We can find tools to help us navigate the things that we're dealing with. We can find a collective energy that supports the growth and development of who we are and who we are going to become, right? So for this, what I wind up saying is, one, be careful of those who have the solutions for your life. Because if you take their advice, you may be giving them the power over your life when you should have the power over your own life. Then two, identify what it is that you really want. Sometimes we really want, like this person was able to identify peace, but sometimes we want something that we can't have. Like I remember when we first started this healing path, or when you first start your healing path, I know this is a common feeling that we all have. The first people that we want to bring along with us to becoming the best version of ourselves is our family and friends, right? But we do not have the power to control that. Some people identity is wrapped up in the experiences that they are afraid that if they let go of those experiences, they won't know who they are, right? But you understand that letting go of these experiences will allow you the freedom to become who you were meant to be, not just be stuck in a space of who you are or who you was, right? And that, my friend, is the segment. I gotta show it again. Ask Soul Swami. Listen, I gotta get some little music so I won't have to do it with my mouth. But I'm excited about it. I look forward to having more episodes of Soul Swami. If you want to have my opinion, if you follow me on social media, do not hesitate to shoot me an inbox. I will be able to, and I say this because you are not the only person having these discussions, sharing with somebody, allowing me to be able to share with others will let you see that you are not alone in this situation, and what you're going through, someone else may need to hear exactly what you need to hear. All right. So now we're going to get to the meat of the show. Thank you for supporting that, asshole Swami. So last week we wound up discussing the law of correspondence. And what that meant was patterns repeat across different levels of reality. Ultimately, your inner world corresponds to your outer world. How you feel on the inside creates what you see on the outside. And your inner world, your inner world creates your outer world. As I just said, how you feel. If you're feeling chaotic on the inside, then you will see that chaos and instability in your daily experiences or in the life or the world that surrounds you, right? We also discussed universal patterns as they reside in nature, something as seasons or the roots mimic the branches, or even down to our atoms, on how the atoms inside of our body mimic solar systems in the universe that the stars reside in. As we talked about, we are made of the exact same things as the stars, right? Then we discussed the connection to science. That was fractals, patterns repeat at different levels and different scales, and that's where we use the idea of the seasons. Those seasons repeat year after year, infinitely. Even with this understanding of global warming changing that, we still count on the seasons, right? Hey, here where I'm at, we're supposed to be looking for snow this weekend, which is interesting because we was having 70-degree temperature in December, right? Then we also discussed the systems theory, which is the theory that winds up saying micro level changes affect the macro. And that's where we discussed that idea of global warming. As we get more technologically advanced, the advancements that we face on the micro level affect the larger macro level that we exist in. The things that we do. Why you despise the aftermath of snow? I like snow. Well, I'm biased. I am born in February, so I'm technically a winter baby. And I've lived in snow places, and the things you can do in snow that you can't do, period, anywhere else. Like build a snowman, right? Now, the only thing I don't like is I can understand that because I didn't like New York snow. New York had wet snow, and people would pee in the snow. It was always dirty. It was just a terrible snow experience, as opposed to when I was in a place like Montana. Montana has so much flat land, and there wasn't a lot of people out there peeing in the snow that you get to deal with what they call dry snow. So it was less like slush and more like the snow you see in the movies. So it was like it was very theatrical, and there are so many things that you could do with the snow then. So I understand that. Then we also discussed cognitive behavioral theories, which basically means that your thoughts and ideas shape your beliefs and behaviors. Then we went into a little deeper on the implications of the law of correspondence, which means essentially if you feel, an example of an implication is if you feel that you are unworthy, you will attract relationships that reflect that. You will attract relationships, you'll wind up being in relationships that wind up supporting this feeling of unworthiness. That's one of the things with our Ask Soul Swami question. That's one of the dynamics that's going in there. It's a sense of worthiness that's been shaped and identified in that person. So the relationships treat them exactly how they feel, right? And not just what they say, but what they feel. And one of the reasons we can recognize that this is what they feel is because how they endure the relationships. And I'm not just speaking as a person outside of this. I'm speaking as a person who identified that dynamic in his own life. I did have a sense of unworthiness. And when I looked at my relationships, I wasn't appreciated in a way that I felt I should be. But it was because I had this deep-seated, unacknowledged sense of unworthiness. Also, we learned that unresolved inner conflict winds up showing up as recurrent relationship issues, right? So, one way I wound up seeing this is really when we have our thoughts on male or female, our thoughts on male or women. If we don't think highly of men, we wind up behaving in a way that supports our thoughts, and it winds up being recurring patterns in our relationships. So then we start feeling like the problem is men, and we never identify that the problem is women, but we never identify that the problem resides in us, because the only people that are going to be able to deal with that are people who have the same issue, right? I had this discussion with one of my Reiki clients one time, and one of the questions that they were asking all the time was, why do I wind up dealing with so many people that are full of shit, right? And I explained to them ever so gently, you know why that happens, right? Because you too are full of it, right? Because the only people that can deal with full of shit people are people who are full of shit. Because people who are living authentically, they can't deal with that. They don't even attract those people. And when they do, because occasionally opposites do attract, they know to move on because it does not support who they are in a healthy way, right? Wait a minute. Okay, cool. That's what we did. So now we're going to move on to tonight's topics, which is the law of attraction. Right. So essentially, the law of attraction says that you attract in your life whatever you consistently think, you consistently feel. Remember, feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves, and you consistently believe. You attract what you consistently think, consistently feel, or consistently believe, right? And it's this is under the understanding that like attract like. Positive attract positive, negative attract negative. Even though they say opposites attract, the rest of that story is they have to be broken apart by cataclysmic events. You don't find those positives hanging. You won't find those positives hanging with a group of negative. You have to take that positive from a group of positives and connect it to a negative. You have to take that negative from a group of negative and connect it to a positive. That is because positives attract positive, like attract like. Negative attracts negative. And this isn't to say that we got to make sure that we understand. This law of attraction isn't to say that one singular thought, one straight thought idea, we deal with it as the human experiences. We don't just live in positive thoughts. Negative thoughts have a way to come into our life. They are tools that we use. They are spaces that we need to create to be able to feel these things as well. But it isn't to say that one straight thought makes the difference. It's where you dominantly reside. Do you think positive about relationships overall? Or do you think fearful of what could possibly happen? Are you stuck in the space of what ifs? Or are you stuck in the space of what has happened? Are you creating these self-fulfilling prophecies, which we'll talk about several times as we begin to understand the law of attraction, right? So it is not just one idea, one thought. That is normal. We're humans. You're going to have positive thoughts. You're going to have negative thoughts. That is normal. We are a balanced being, right? But it's where you dominantly reside. Are you a positive person? Do you reside in positive energy? Or do you predominantly most of your time is spent in negative energy, worry, fear, manipulation, stress? Is that where most of your time is? Or are you living in a space of freedom, joy, gratitude, authenticity? That's what that means, right? Second thing we want to understand about the law of attraction is that thoughts literally become things. We talked about that when we read the book The Alchemist. One of the things, one of the gifts that we had to recognize is everybody has the gift of dream, but not everybody has the gift to bring those dreams to life, right? Because your thoughts and ideas become things. They become things. Thoughts shape or influence your emotions, right? And we understood from our past lessons that emotions are literally energy in motions, right? So thoughts will influence your emotions. Your emotions will influence your behaviors or actions. And understand this, not just the emotions that we feel, but the feelings, the stories that we tell ourselves about these emotions. We will act on those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions. We will create behaviors or actions that reflect how we really feel. That's how we wind up creating those self-fulfilling prophecies. After we do that, we got actions. The actions influence the outcome, right? We talked about this. I say this all the time. Intentions don't matter if they don't create good outcomes. And so many of us get stuck in that space of intentions. We had good intentions. We had intended for this to be helpful. I like the example that we used earlier. Those people are intending to be helpful, right? But it doesn't matter if it's not creating the outcomes that we really need. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I'm doing too much, family. Forgive me. So, thoughts influence emotions, emotions influence actions, and actions influence our outcomes. You create your reality inside out. How you think will wind up being the actions you take to support those thoughts. And those actions you take that support those thoughts will create your outcomes, right? So that's why we be mindful of our thoughts. That's why we're trying to reshape how we think. We be trying to become a sense of embodiment of these thoughts and ideas so that when we do think, we understand the power of our thoughts, the influence that they have. They are the foundation or the first steps in our outcomes, the outcomes that we see in our lives. Are we living a life that we thought we should live? Are we living a life that's in alignment with what we should live? And how are our thoughts affecting that? How are our thoughts affecting that, right? Also, we want to understand that you attract what you are, not just what you want. And that was one of those ideas that I kind of had a tough time to being able to understand, not necessarily understand, but to be able to grab onto or hold on to as an idea. You don't just attract what you are. You attract what you are, not just what you want. Because there were so many things that I wanted. And some of the things that I attracted, I'd look at those things and be like, that's not me. Because I didn't think of myself. I didn't have this space where I was authentic or fully aware that that is exactly how I think. And that's why we had the discussion on relationships specifically. And we talked about how relationships reflect our past, present, and future, right? We wind up dating people or grumbling across people who used to believe the way we think, or people that believe ways that we used to think. We wind up meeting people that think the way we think. And then we wind up meeting people that show us that even the way we think is going to change and evolve over time. And we'll have new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing some of the same old experiences. We evolve over time. right? So what this means on a deeper level, that if your and this is something that we got to understand. If your desires and your beliefs contradict each other, if your desires and beliefs contradict each other, your beliefs win, right? So that means if you want something like love, right? But you have this thought of unworthiness, conscious or unconscious. And we talk about bringing our unconscious thoughts to the forefront of our mind so that we can see what they are doing to our reality. So if you have this want, this desire for love, but consciously or unconsciously you think you're unworthy, your sense of unworthiness will win. It will be the victor. It will create the reality that you are experiencing, right? Again, if your desires and belief contradict, your beliefs will win. If you have this sense of unworthiness, right? As a matter of fact, where, for the example of unworthiness, where we can wind up seeing how we really think about that, is really the idea, or how we feel about unworthiness really shows up in the questioning, or the thoughts, or the stories, the feelings that we have around that. Do we ask things like, why me? Do we say things like, this always happens to me? Those thoughts and ideas are reflections of your belief systems, not your desires and wants. Those thoughts and ideas, the fact that you're even thinking that, reflects how you really feel, right? Are those questions coming from a place of positive energy or negative energy? Are they coming from a place of security or insecurity? Are they coming from a place of stability or instability? That's where you wind up finding how you really feel about yourself. When you start paying attention to the questions that you're asking, the statements that you're saying, the feelings, the stories that you are telling yourself. And that is 100% correct. As someone just said, at Liberty specifically, that's why community is important. That's what we do here. We wind up creating that space to create a community of like-minded individuals. So we wind, as a matter of fact, you are here because we vibrate at a same level, right? Even though we know different things, we have different experiences, we vibrate on a same level. That's why we were attracted to this group, or this perspective, or this community of thinkers. And you being here puts the energy in that is like the gas for the car that makes this community go, that makes this healing process go, that helps the soul family grow into their authentic selves and the best versions of themselves, right? Next, we want to talk about the science behind this idea of the law of attraction, right? One thing that we found out, well, not that we found out, one idea, scientific idea that supports this law of attraction is called reticular activating system, RAS. You can do more research on that and learn a little bit more about that on your own time. What that basically means is your brain filters info based on what you focus on. So if you think this, you're going to pay more attention to that. As a matter of fact, that's where cognitive dissonance comes into play, right? So like we're going to talk about this, or when we talk about this idea of trust, I know whenever I say trust is to be given, it creates certain emotions in people, especially if they disagree, right? And when they do disagree, they wind up thinking about all the times that support their idea of trust is to be earned. And they will not pay attention to any of those times, or they'll, as I said, cognitive dissonance away any of those experiences that contradict what they want to think and believe. What's the aha moment? You know what? I appreciate that. And that you had an aha moment. I'm glad that you're actively invested in this and learning. And for me, all of these things be aha moments, right? We all together are sharpening our blades so that we can cut through the minutia, all the bullshit, right? We all sharpening our blades, right? So how this winds up work, this reticular activating system. For example, if you think about success, if you think you're going to be successful, you know what you see? You see opportunities that will allow you to flex that success, to experience that success. If you think about rejection, all you see is threats. One of the reasons that we wind up thinking trust is to be earned is this right there. We're concerned about rejection. So we are living in this hypervigilant state, which will come up a little bit later, where we're looking for the threats. Yes, reticular activating system was an aha moment for me, because one of the things that we wind up doing through this process is really learning the words that support some of the things that we felt are kind of just universally new or instinctively new. Like, we knew that what we focus on, we see more of, right? But we didn't know that it was a science behind that. There is science behind that, right? The next thing we want to understand the science behind is this idea that I brought up a little earlier, but it is that idea of self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? And people talk about that all the time, but we don't really understand what that means. What is a self-fulfilling prophecy? Again, your thoughts influence your behaviors, and your behaviors influence your actions. So whatever you think, you're going to behave in a way that supports what you think, and that's going to show your outcomes, and your outcomes are going to support what you think. That is the cycle. That is self-belief. That is self-fulfilling prophecies. That means your beliefs influence your behaviors and then influence your outcomes. So, for example, if you think that you're going to fail, which many of us construct a lot of our ideas from a negative foundation, we are too worried about failing. One of the things that kept me from doing something like this was my fears of vulnerability. Who are these strangers to be able to judge me? But I'm not worried about that. One of the things that we do here is become more comfortable with vulnerability, right? So if you think that you're going to fail, you'll begin to act timid. You'll take actions that support your fears of failing, right? And then you fail. And that reinforces your belief. That is the cycle of self-fulfilling prophecies. Listen, I do want to say that is as a constant reminder throughout this process is important as perspectives. One thing that I'm learning throughout this process, and we say it all the time, but the tools that we use to navigate life, that tool is really just one. It's perspectives. Perspective is the sword. The more perspectives we have, the more tools that we have to navigate this life. The more perspectives we have, the more tools we have to navigate our experiences, our love, our worthiness, our success, our failures. We need more perspective. So we talk about it like it's a multitude of different tools, like it's a hammer, a screwdriver, a screw, a nail, all those things, but it really is just one universal tool, and that tool is perspective. And that's once we recognize that, we understand how powerful perspective is, how much perspective shapes our reality. So many people we even talked about it when we did quantum mechanics. Once we make that decision, perspectives are infinite. Opportunities and possibilities are infinite. But as soon as we decide on one, we collapse all the other possibilities. So soon as we hold on to that one perspective, like that idea of failing, then we leave no room for success. We leave no room for achievement. We leave no room for anything that will contradict what we've already decided on. So perception winds up being a fantastic tool. Right. So the next thing that the next scientific idea that supports the law of attraction is emotional conditioning, right? And what that is understanding that positive emotions coming from a space of positivity, it broadens your thinking and creativity. If you think you're going to be successful, if you think you can achieve your goals, you will think about a multitude of different things that will help you support your success, right? If you wind up thinking negative emotions constrict your thinking and your ability to solve problems. And I want you to understand that living in that space of fear, living in that space of survival is a negative emotion, right? And that negative emotion will constrict your thinking and your ability to actually solve the problems that you need solving. You cannot heal, you cannot fix negativity with negativity, right? And understand that it is important to understand that those fears, those survivals are actually creating the blocks, the barriers that keep you from solving your own problems. I seen this dude, and it was funny because it was specifically about race. And he says the way to stop racism is to not talk about it. Who taught you that? What problem gets fixed by never acknowledging it? All they do is like work. Problems are just like work in this sense. They wait for you. They don't go anywhere just because you're not acknowledging them. They don't go anywhere. If I don't put gas in my car and I sit here, I'm like, I ain't going to think about it. Gas doesn't magically appear in my car because I'm not addressing it. Positive energy will create the space for us to be able to find solutions to the problems that we endure, right? Understand that. That's emotional conditioning. Positive emotions broaden your thinking and creativity. Negative emotions constrict your thinking and ability to solve problems, right? What time are we at here? Like I said, more than likely this is gonna be a 2-part. But right now, the interesting thing about the law of attraction is that the law of attraction has 7 laws of its own. And of the universal laws, it is the only one like this. And this is one of the reasons why people will take that law, the law of attraction, out of the 12 universal law, out of the framework of the universal laws, because the law of attraction has 7 laws within itself that must be abided by to really empower your attraction abilities, right? We understand what's the most attractive organ that we have? Our heart. 50 times larger magnetic field, 5,000 times stronger in magnetism, right? So the first law of attraction is the law of manifestation. What does that mean? Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs all create the energetic blueprint for what you attract in your life, right? That means your thoughts, how you feel, as we talked about the process, we go through that to outcomes. Your thoughts, emotions, and belief, they are the blueprint for your life. So if you're not having a life that you want to lead, go inward. That's what they mean by doing that shadow work. Again, that's why I was talking about don't give your power away. Take your power back because it resides within you. Right? So, understanding that your thoughts become the energetic blueprint of your life. So if you're not having the energy that you would like to have, go back to your thoughts. Acknowledge the conscious thoughts and work to have the self-awareness or be honest enough to yourself to be able to acknowledge the unconscious thoughts, the things that you don't like to think about, right? Understanding this law of manifestation helps you understand that what you focus on becomes your experience, right? So if you are worried about not being appreciated, you get experiences that support that. That is the law of manifestation, right? And it's more than just saying something like, I want to be abundant. That is just a thought. Then you have to take actions and behaviors, and those actions and behaviors will create your outcome. But just being able to announce that you want to be abundant does not necessarily mean that is how you feel. Because are you taking the steps to support your abundance? If you are not, then you need to go back and acknowledge how you really feel and understand that. Because what you focus on becomes your experiences. Are you having more positive experiences in your interactions, or are you having experiences that support or reinforce your thoughts and ideas in a negative way, especially as we think about things like relationships? How do you really feel about men? How do you really feel about women? Right? That's one of the things I had to acknowledge. One of the reasons why I focused on my sacral, I focused on my heart, because I had to acknowledge I had some real live fears as it related to women. Fears around trust. The one that my friend I appreciate you helping me. Feelings around safe. Do I feel safe? I had real fears. No, I don't feel safe. Whoa. Why is that? Where is that coming from? Why do you not feel safe with your other half? Why do you not feel safe with that which is supposed to balance you? Where is that coming from? Right? Why do you not feel the importance of connecting with that other half? Even though both halves reside in us, our one whole has to connect with another whole so that we can become that one, right? The next law in the law of attraction is the law of magnetism, right? And that is your inner vibrations pulling matching external energies. The level that you're vibrating at, if you live in fear of your safety, you wind up finding yourself in places where you ain't safe, right? Or you wind up being one of those people who opt out of their own lives and they no longer actively participate in that because of that idea is based on fear. We talk about it all the time. The people who profess, I haven't been in a relationship, I haven't done this in so many years. Every time I hear that, I always think that is fear-based thinking. And you have decided that opting out of your life is the best way to solve this problem. But you've just collapsed all the possibilities because you're unwilling to accept any other perspectives, right? So you understand this, and the law of magnetism is that you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So when you are dating or you're seeing these people or you're having these interactions and you're saying that's not me, it is you. Because if it wasn't you, you wouldn't even be here to begin with. There wouldn't even be a place that you chose. And so many of us, we have this idea of ourselves, and that idea of ourselves does not always match the reality of our behaviors. Like in the example that we used earlier in Acts So, Swami, they specifically said that a year later, these people didn't remember. They do remember. It just does not match the idea that they have for themselves. We all think that we're good people. So when we do something that's not so good, we're more likely to push that away and not acknowledge that. But our behaviors really reflect how we are, how we really think. Are we behaving as good people? Are we embodying the words and lives that we want to live, right? This is the idea. An example of that is confident people. Not cocky, but confident. Confident people usually attract confident partners and confident opportunities. And they get confident results. They get success. They get confident partners. They see more opportunities for success, and they actually achieve success, all because they built their foundation on something solid as confidence, right? Another example is fearful, which many of us, especially if we're living in that space of survival or worry, we wind up recognizing, we wind up creating fear, attract situations that support and reinforce our fears. Like we use the example of trust. If we wind up feeling like trust is to be earned, that sends a message to the universe. And we find ourselves in situations where we're not surrounded by trustworthy people. And even if they are trustworthy, that's not the energy that they're leading with, because they're looking at you too, like your trust must be earned. And many of us have become comfortable with that idea because that space of comfort doesn't force us to question our thoughts and beliefs. That we wind up becoming the people that we talk about. We forget how our behaviors and thoughts have affected our outcome, right? Law number 3 in the law of attraction is the law of pure intentions. And what does that mean? That means the manifestations, things come into your life faster when your intentions are pure. And what does that mean? People always we talk about that, of purest of heart. What does that mean? That means they are not driven by fear. They're not driven by desperation. And they're not driven by manipulation, like control. Control is a tool for manipulation. Now, that doesn't mean it's always bad, but if we are stepping out and we're behaving in ways that allow us to have the control over most situations, because that's how we feel safe, our intentions are no longer pure. We're building a foundation on something negative. Again, pure intentions mean that your intentions are not driven by fear, right? So when it comes to taking that chance, are you fearful? They're not driven by desperation. Do you feel like I gotta do this? One thing I'll never forget, man, my homeboy probably taught me this when we was kids, because the older generation was teaching us to move in desperation. And it really came around this idea of a job. I remember when we was pee-wees, he'd lose his job, and the family around us, even people say this to me, you just need to take a job so you can have something, blah, 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 so forth, right? And he would always say, I'm not just going to take something just to have something. And the people, the older adults around us used to act like that was wrong. But what he was saying is right. I'm not going to move in a space of desperation because my intentions are no longer pure. So the things that I want will not come to me fast. Or Never, right? And like I said, manipulation, and I really want to use that example of control because a lot of us feel safer when we have control. One of the reasons why I became a leader or stepped into leadership in my career was around control. I felt as though I'd rather have control. I seen the people who had control and I didn't like that. So I felt as though that control would be better in my hand. But I do understand that to have control, it requires manipulation, right? Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it requires manipulation. Even some of my ideas and the foundations of relationships were based on this idea of control. But I didn't want to accept or connect that control. That idea of control was founded in manipulation. Manipulation, right? Last one we're going to talk about, and we'll continue to show next year, not next year, next week. But it is the law of paradoxical balance. And what does that mean? You must desire something without clinging to it. That means clinging to the outcomes. So if it works out the way you want, good. If it doesn't work out the way you want, you also able to let that go as well, right? You do not internalize. That's what that means by clinging to the outcomes. You do not necessarily internalize these things as a reflection of who you are, right? Because that attachment right there, that attachment creates the resistance. If you're wondering why things are not moving forward in your life the way that you would like them to, is because you've been necessarily clinging to old outcomes. And that clinging and that attachment to those old outcomes is what's keeping you stuck. It is creating the barriers that you don't want to experience. It is creating the roadblocks that keep you from being able to live the authenticity or have what you really want to attract in your life. And that is not even to begin to discuss the effects that it have on your heart, the most magnetic organ that we have. It is like that for a reason, because we should be leading with our heart. And all the other ones work in conjunction and in support with our heart. But we understand that, right? So how you wind up working this out in your life is you have a desire. You have a want, whether it be love, whether it be abundance, whether it be confidence, whether it be stability. You have this desire that you identified and you can profess, right? And then the next thing you do is you take actions or steps or behaviors to be able to achieve that desire. And then you release the outcomes. You don't worry so much about the outcomes. You do your best, and you understand your best is good enough, right? And what is releasing the outcome is letting go the attachment, right? An example of this is like where we want to understand, and I say this too, trust is to be given, not earned. But trust and openness or vulnerability are the tools that magnetize this balance. Trust and vulnerability is what creates the space for us to be able to grab. We have to bring down those barriers. We have to bring down those roadblocks. Acknowledge that many of them are self-inflicted barriers and roadblocks that keep us from our own dreams. We bring those down with trust of ourselves, trust in our abilities, Trust in the way that we think and we can process these things, right? Many of us no longer trust ourselves. So that's why we have all these barriers and not boundaries. We create all these walls because they give us the illusion of protecting ourselves. But what we're really showing is that we no longer trust ourselves to make the right decisions because we've been clinging to these outcomes that did not work in our favor. And every time we cling to one of those things, another brick in the wall is laid, right? But that trust and openness and vulnerability is what we need to magnetize our heart and attract these results that we want, right? And that is why we say things like, trust is to be given, not earned. That's why on our healing path, being vulnerable and open has been so important for us. Because we understand once we tear down those walls, yes, it does create a space where we are exposed. But without those walls, that space of exposure allows us the space to attract. That is the idea of paradoxical balance, right? So family, that is how we're going to wrap up this episode. We'll continue the law of attraction next Tuesday. You can catch us Thursday if you want to, where we are continuing to read Razor Blade Tears, which has been an excellent group book by S.A. Cosby. We are getting towards the end of that, but Tuesday at 7 p.m. you can catch us continue to reading with book club, reading Razor Blade Tears. If you can't make it Thursday, make sure you come back here Tuesday as we continue our discussion on the law of attraction and the 7 laws that reside into that. And we'll go a little bit deeper into the law of attraction as well. But we continue our discussion of the laws of attraction. And before we go, remember this week, the energy point that we've been focusing on is our third eye, or our intuition. And these affirmations will help you ignite your intuition. Remember, I trust my intuition. Remember, my imagination is powerful. You don't just have to. Hey, how you see Pretty Black? Oh, I ain't even see her. Hey, Pretty Black girl. Her comment didn't even show up. I appreciate you. I was gonna ask you if you back in town. I was thinking about you today, but I ain't sleep well last night, so I took me a power nap that really wound up being going to sleep. But I'll check on you. Again, your imagination is powerful. Understanding that it has the power to create the positive and the negative. You can spiral into the negative and thinking about all of what is, or you can spiral into the positive and think about what is, right? I think clearly. You have to believe that about yourself. You have to believe that about how you think. You have to understand that you have the ability and the power to see things clearly. That resides in you, right? And my third eye sees all. That means your intuition has the ability to pick up on all vibrational frequencies that reside in your life. Family, I thank you. If you got some time, make sure you go over there and check out Kat. She's having the Versus Kat's Kitchen on TikTok. And watch the Versus. She's having a DJ Versus tonight, so we're going to see what the DJs are doing. If you're not on there again, check out Kat. I appreciate you, family. And I'll see you either Thursday for book club or back here Tuesday for the continuation of the law of attraction. Gratitude and peace, family.